Hey there, folks. I'm Tommy Tran with Rick Gehman, Mark Immelman, and Patrick McDonald. And I'm going to give all of you guys an opportunity to express what Scottie Scheffler's been able to do. And Rick, I'm going to have you go first here. What stood out to you about Scottie Scheffler winning the Open Championship?
I think it was how he started and how he finished, Tommy. I mean, he goes out and completely shuts the door on the first hole by knocking one to tap-in range for birdie. And if you thought you were going to be able to make up a multiple-shot lead on Scottie Scheffler on Sunday, he told you right out of the gate you were not going to do that. And he just extended this lead and basically made sure everyone else in the field know that they were playing for second very early in this round. Quite honestly, the only mistake that he made, doubling the eighth hole, was entirely self-inflicted and probably a shot that he doesn't even take on if he's not in the lead with as a sizable of an advantage as he was at the time. And then after that, it's just right back to being Scottie. The immediate bounce back, he tacks on another at 12, and he just took apart Royal Portrush in a way that made it look so simple. And that is what he's been doing all year long. It's what he's been doing for the last couple of years. This major championship victory to me was Scottie-esque with the way that he was able to attack this golf course.
Rick, you described that so perfectly, and I just want to build a little bit and elaborate on what you say. The mechanics of how Scottie Scheffler does this is just vintage. It sort of smacks of a Jack Nicklaus, even a Tiger Woods, maybe with less histrionics. Just the shot selection. If you watched every shot he played most of the tournament, the iron play was always the right distance, always to the safe side of the hole. I noticed a really interesting play on the second hole of this day, where it's a par 5. He's driven the ball all 3 rounds, but now with a lead after that birdie on one you reference, he goes with 3-wood. Basically taking the big mistake out of play. Then you add to that with this virtuoso ball striking, he putted the ball sensationally well today. But we've got to point to things that you can't measure with Scottie Scheffler. The patience that he showed the entire week, never forced the issue. The poise he showed, always hitting the right shot. And then, of course, this perspective that he had, that he teased us with in the press prior to the tournament, where he goes, look, I'm looking for significance. Winning is what I do. I compete. I love to work hard. But it's all about significance for me. And I tell you what, this was a significant performance.
Mark, I'm glad you brought up number 2, too. Not only the club selection off the tee, but I think about his third as well, green side, being like, okay, par is going to be fine on this hole, not getting suckered into trying to hit a nippy, really touchy-feely, tight shot and just taking par and moving on to the next. But I think what I'm so impressed with Scheffler is he seems to be improving each and every time he's on this major championship stage. Think about his 3 prior wins, right? He admitted before his 2022 Masters that he was a wreck that morning trying to win his first green jacket. The 2024 Masters was tight across the front 9. And then the PGA Championship this year, he was battling the lefts before he kind of ran away from the field on the back 9 there at Quail Hollow. Today, like Rick mentioned, it felt like after the first hole, hitting that shot to tap, and it was like, who's playing for second at this point? And if Scottie Scheffler is getting more and more comfortable in this position, it is trouble for the rest of the golf world.
Yeah, and let's follow up on Scottie Scheffler because he's starting to enter rarefied air. And Mark, I'm going to just follow with you in terms of being out there on the PGA Tour on the regular with Scottie Scheffler. Remind us what makes Scottie so great and arguably the best in the game that we have today.
I think it's just the myopic, that sort of singular vision he has. I was struck, and this happens week in and week out, and it happens whether he wins or whether he doesn't win on the PGA Tour. If you really paid attention to the images of him for the first time in a while, sort of drinking in the adulation of the crowd there on the 18th after he held the winning putts, but he seemed genuinely enamored with his son Bennett and with his wife Meredith. You know, a lot of folks would have sort of walked around the green, acknowledged the crowds and stuff. He waved to the crowds, but then it was all about his family. And so he's just true to what he does. And so I feel like the perspective he has keeps this whole golf thing in its place. And for him, it's faith, family, and then golf, where so many guys on the PGA Tour could be the other way around, and perhaps that's when the maelstrom of emotions starts to take over. So what he does is he's an incredible ball striker, but just mind-wise and the presence of mind he has, it's otherworldly right now.
Something that he expressed this week that made certain headlines out there in Northern Ireland. Rick, I'm going to come to you. That's now 4 major championships for Scottie Scheffler and 25 starts. He's on pace now to try to get that career slam with Shinnecock Hills in the U.S. Open next year as well. Just give me some context into what efficiency Scottie's doing it at the moment.
Historic rate that he's on, Tommy. 4 major championships in his first 25 major championship starts. That matches Rory McIlroy. It's better than Seve Ballesteros and Gary Player, and it's right behind names like Brooks Koepka and Jack Nicklaus. Now, this is kind of where we see, where do we go from here, right? Rory got to 4 at a very young age. Scottie is much older in his prime, but still has probably plenty of great years ahead of him. There's an argument to be made that he's getting better, the ability to continually find new shots on and around the putting surfaces, and now we are going to enter 2026 with a really good chance to have a second consecutive year where somebody completes the career Grand Slam. Of course, if Scottie Scheffler could win the U.S. Open at Shinnecock. So this is really a historic moment, and this moment has been going on since 2022. There was a stat that they threw up on the broadcast that the length of time in days between major championship number 1 and major championship number 4 is exactly the same number as Tiger Woods. So it's very difficult to compare anybody to the big cat. For those who did not get to see Tiger in their prime, this is by far the closest thing that we've had.
And then, of course, Rory McIlroy, a Masters champion, John Rahm a couple of years ago as well. But in general, Patrick, Americans have certainly done well, come away with the hardware when it comes to the majors. Can you put your finger on it?
Well, I think the first point is Scottie Scheffler is American, which certainly helps, right? Like Rick just mentioned, having 4 of his first 25. But then you also have Xander Schauffele's major championship career up to this point, I feel like is severely underrated. Not only the season he had last year with 2 wins and 2 top 10 finishes, but really ever since he bursted onto the scene, Xander Schauffele has been a top 20, top 10 machine in major championships. And then you think about how the PGA, the switch to May from August, what that test has really turned into. In my opinion, it's turned into a pure driving test, and we've seen guys like Brooks Koepka play well in that championship, guys like Bryson DeChambeau play well in that championship and the U.S. Open. And so I think those middle 2 tests are just so great for American golfers and what they're asked to do on a week-to-week basis on the PGA Tour, which is pretty much hit it as far as you can, go find it, and hit your second shot. So I think that's a main key. But I've been so impressed with their play across the pond, right, Tommy? Now Brian Harman, Xander Schauffele, and Scottie Scheffler, 3 in a row for the Americans raising the claret jug. I think Royal Portrush was a great spot for Scottie Scheffler just because it felt like it was more of an aerial attack, not necessarily the ground game that some links golf courses require. And we saw him run away from the field and add another one to the American side.
Yep, add one to the American side. A lot of people thought perhaps Rory McIlroy returning to Northern Ireland at Royal Portrush was certainly going to be something for him. Mark, can you give me a sense in a wrap-up of Rory McIlroy? Really, since the Masters was fun to talk about Rory, not so much everything surrounding him, but coming into this tournament relatively regular, whatever that seems to mean there with Rory?
Yeah, there's no doubt that over the last few weeks he's shown some of the Rory we saw earlier in the year with the victories at both Pebble and the Players and, of course, the Masters for the Grand Slam. The game's there, and it looks like there's an ease about him. If you watched him here in the final round, there were more smiles. He kind of resigned himself perhaps to the fact that, okay, I'm not going to win this thing in Portrush, so I'm going to drink in the atmosphere, which he did. And the fans over there love him. And you almost get a sense now that what we thought may be kind of the tour de force for him, that was going to be enjoying the Grand Slam achievement, it looks like he's beginning to enjoy this thing right now, where initially it looked like it was a little bit of a curse for a while. So he's freeing up, and I look for a big finish to the season for him, for Rory McIlroy.
It was a good finish for Bryson DeChambeau, given that 78 on Thursday. I'm going to get Patrick and Rick's thoughts on DeChambeau. And Rick, I'm going to start with you because you and I did the Thursday round recap, and boy, it was not looking good for DeChambeau. Admitted he thought about going home, said his late father, really inspired him to turn things around and stick it out, and boy, did he ever.
We talked about it on Thursday night that he was probably going to have to shoot the round of the day on Friday to even make the cut. Well, he did that, and then he basically got better each day over the course of the weekend. He's going to rue that Thursday, or he's going to wish that he had one extra round, because Bryson figured something out over the final 3 days. I think a lot of it is definitely the fact that the weather around Royal Portrush was pristine. As Patrick alluded to, it was much more of an aerial game this week than a true link-style golf course. course. Obviously, there were plenty of options out there, but that's the one thing that has given Bryson fits in his career. But I'm interested to see where he goes now. Does this kind of break that mental barrier for him at Open Championships or at link-style golf courses? Does this unlock something? He's clearly one of the best players in the world, but he has struggled at this style of golf. I think that we might be seeing him enter a new era of link-style play.
Yeah, such an impressive final 54 holes for Bryson. And I look back to Ben Griffin's first tee shot when I'm thinking about Bryson. I'll just stay with me for a second. Ben Griffin's first tee shot of this championship, he decided to pull a driver, hit it out of bounds, went back to the bag, hit a mid-iron down the fairway. And it felt kind of, that's what Bryson did with his first round. Hit the driver everywhere, did not play well, did not put the ball in front of him, played from every nook and cranny that was Royal Portrush. And then he was like, okay, let me just rein it in a little bit. He drove it much better, yes. The iron play was terrific. And he finally putted well on greens over here, which he has not done throughout his career. And so coming into the week, I remember him saying last year at Royal Troon, I can play links golf if it's warm and it's not windy. And guess what? Bryson DeChambeau got those conditions the final 54 holes. So he can obviously add a ton of confidence from this. He now has 2 top 10 finishes there in his Open career. And he can know coming over to the Open, if the conditions are right, he is certainly capable of being a factor.
Again, 7 over for that opening round. Then the final 54 holes, 16 under for Bryson DeChambeau. And because, guys, the way that Scottie Scheffler, of course, came into the lead today, was able to execute a lot of conversations, especially on social media, about the Ryder Cup and some of the guys like a Bryson DeChambeau who came into the week in the top 5. He was asked afterwards, guys, about the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black and said he wants to bring a tsunami to the crowd. And he also admitted that Captain Keegan Bradley had sent little notes to potential Ryder Cup participants that, quote, this year is no joke. We're tired of losing, end quote. I want to get thoughts from all of you guys. Mark, I'm going to have you go first.
Well, I think there were a few guys, including Bryson, that did themselves a huge favor to making Captain Keegan's lineup. And I'm looking at Harris English, who was a strong man this week. Hey, Chris Goddard was turning a few heads. The New Jersey boy playing in New York could be a thing. I thought Brian Harmon, you know, all but sort of iced his spot there alongside some of the automatic guys. But as it pertains to Bryson, I believe he's going to bring a tsunami. And I harken back to the PGA Championship in Charlotte, where I had him both rounds over the weekend. And it was like the Beatles showed up there. Every hole, the kids were running, screaming his name. He was high-fiving people. So he is like the perfect guy. You know, it was always JT and Jordan that sort of were the lightning rods for the team. I get the sense that this may be Bryson. At Whistling Straits, it was the deal when he drove the first green. Remember that? So I figure this tsunami he's talking about, it's going to be so, and all the YouTubers are going to show up as well. And it's going to be a thing for the United States and the United States team, in my opinion.
Mark, good to know that you'll be at the Ryder Cup. I'm excited to see you there. Yeah. But I will say Bryson's fanboys are a different breed, as Mark were alluding to. They are very passionate. They love their guy. And I'm glad that Mark brought up Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas, because I think you could put JT with Bryson DeChambeau. You think about Bryson's driving ability, where the area of the game that JT does struggle. You have his iron play. You have his short game creativity combined with Bryson DeChambeau's putting. You could send them off each and every day to light a fire in this New York crowd, and it would be unbelievable, the scenes there at Bethpage Black. So definitely locked up his spot. It'd be irresponsible for Keegan Bradley if Bryson DeChambeau is not on that team. He certainly seems like he will be, and I can't wait to see what he does in September.
I can't wait until somebody has to play alternate shot with his new golf ball that he is developing that only he is going to be playing. That'll be a lot of fun. But on a serious note, I wasn't at Whistling Straits, but I was in Rome, and that team lacked juice. They walked out there on Friday morning, and it was like they were walking the plank. I mean, they were just chum in the water as the European fans and Team Europe went out and demolished them in the opening session. That is not going to happen when Bryson DeChambeau is on the team, because he will be running through the stands. He will be like the mascot for this team. And then, oh, by the way, when he steps on onto the tee box, he's going to bomb one about 360 yards and start getting everybody all pumped up. So the one thing that I thought the U.S. team really struggled with in Rome, energy-wise, until very late at that Ryder Cup, is not going to be a problem when Bryson DeChambeau shows up.
Should be fun, because a lot of the PGA Tour guys, obviously, we'll see them for the FedEx Cup playoffs. Bryson, you'll have to wait wait unless you go to YouTube and the 2v2 with Phil Mickelson and Grant Horvath and Garrett Clark and all that good stuff. All right, Rick, Mark, Patrick, guys, certainly appreciate it. Thanks for the wrap-up of the Open Championship and an eye ahead to the Ryder Cup in September. The early wedge, scan the QR code. They were doing some good work pre-tournament and daily updates, of course, with the time difference there. Check them out however you listen to your podcast and also on YouTube.